Come on in. Come on in. There, it's remote, but it's hybrid. Please come in. Your name is Sam, right? Come on in. Welcome. There is. It'll be on the TV screen. I'm just starting the YouTube.
Dean, your volume is very low.
Very loud?
Low.
Low. Okay. Let's see what we can do about that. How about we go like this? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Better.
Can you hear me? I hope so. Welcome to Community Church of Boston in Copley Square. Welcome and happy Earth Day and happy springtime. And we're gonna start right now with a song written by a friend of ours, written by a friend of Laura's and Kate and Eric's. Her name is Deborah Silverstein. In the Milky Way, on a spiral arm, our solar system. This is no false alarm. Heed the call and listen. Shout it from the mountaintop. Write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Forest green and ocean blue, bathed in starlight. This is our only home, our cosmic birthright. Shout it from the mountaintop. Write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call.
I'll do it in a minute.
Answer the call.
Yes.
Forest green and ocean blue, bathed in starlight. This is our only home, our cosmic birthright. Shout it from the mountaintop. Write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Billions of creatures, great and small, roam across her surface. Believe it or not, we could save it all or shut down the circus. Shout it from the mountaintop. Write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Mothers, daughters, fathers, sons, your hand is on the lever. Our chance will not come again. It's truly now or never. It's now or never. Shout it from the mountaintop. Write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Shout it from the mountaintop. Write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Welcome to Community Church, folks. We have a really cool, wonderful program this morning. Our program is driven by our members' suggestions, and this one in particular is driven by my suggestions. These are dear friends of mine, all of them from decades and decades back. We always light a candle at the beginning. It was just 5 minutes before last Sunday when we heard the awful news that Carolyn Poinelli, our longtime attendee and recent member, passed away, hit by a car in the North End, we believe. And we're just finding out the details, but we light this candle in her memory. She was maybe of all the attendees, the most faithful one. She was always here. Even during the COVID, she was physically present, and she was here a lot during the week too. Carolyn, we miss you, and there will be, I've just coordinated with her family a memorial in July. We'll have a Sunday after we take a break from our Sunday routine, just for Carolyn, to remember her and gather her friends and family. Lots of people on the streets where she spent a lot of time. She walked and walked and walked and went to just about every political event there was anywhere, especially about Palestine. Carolyn Poinelli presente. Once more we say that. And I hope you'll notice that this is a crooked candle. It got in the heat. Somehow it's a beautiful candle, but it's a little bit crooked. I walk a crooked road to get where I am going. To get where I am going, I must walk a crooked road. But only when I'm looking back, I see the straight and narrow. I see the straight and narrow when I walk a crooked road. Blow it out so it won't drip oil all over, wax all over. I am so glad to introduce our musician for today. Not only is he a friend of mine of 38 years maybe, but he is also my cohort in musical mischief. We just did a gig together just a couple of weekends ago up in Lebanon, New Hampshire. He also happens to have recorded 4 albums for me, being the owner of one of the finest studios in Boston and vicinity. And on top of that, being this just incredible songwriter about being human and about being alive and about raising kids and about having relationships and loves. It's just such a rich discography and body of work. Eric's songs, many of whom I haven't even heard. Eric Kilburn, I'm going to spotlight you. We're so glad to have you. So you can start us off here. Thanks, folks, Shane. Welcome Eric Kilburn.
Thanks, you guys. It's great to be here. I'm going to, as I thought about the theme of this morning's service, I thought, well, are there any good climate change songs out there? And the answer is, well, not so much. So one of the best songs I know kind of about the state of the world and the environment is actually a 48-year-old song written by Jackson Browne in 1974. And I'm going to play it for you now. This is called Before the Deluge. And it's a little bit apocalyptic, but I think there's hope in there, and I think that's our mission and our ministry as people in the world, is to notice that things aren't perfect, but keep hope strong in our hearts. So this is a song called Before the Deluge. Some of them were dreamers and some of them were fools. They were making plans and thinking of the future. with the energy of the innocent. And they were gathering the tools they would need to make their journey back to nature. And while the sand slipped through the opening, their hands reached for the golden ring. In their hearts they turned to each other's hearts for refuge. In the troubled years that came before the deluge, some of them knew pleasure and some of them knew pain, and for some of them it was only the moment that mattered. On the brave and crazy wings of youth, they went flying around in the rain, and their feathers, once so fine, grew torn and tattered. And in the end they traded their tired wings for the resignation that living brings, and in exchange love's bright and fragile glow for the glitter and the rouge. And in a moment they were swept before the deluge. Now let the music keep our spirits high. Let the buildings keep our children dry. Let creation reveal its secrets by and by and by, until the light that's lost within us reaches the sky. Some of them were angry at the way the earth was abused, and by the men who learned how to forge her beauty into power. And they struggled to protect her from them, only to be confused by the magnitude of her fury in the final hour. And when the sand was gone and the time arrived, in the naked dawn only a few survived, and in attempts to understand a thing so simple and so huge, believed that they were meant to live after the deluge. Now let the music keep our spirits high. Let the buildings keep our children dry. Let creation reveal its secrets by and by and by, until the light that's lost within us reaches the sky.
Thank you, Eric. Oh, yeah. Well, again, we want to welcome everybody and tell you about a little bit of what's going on at Community Church. We have a wonderful speaker next Sunday. His name is Steve Kellerman, longtime member of Community Church, retired machinist, and also longtime wobbly, member of IWW and militant labor union guy, and also a serious historian. He's going to be giving a talk on Eugene V. Debs. And he was helped a lot by source material right here at the church. We've just taken on this enormous mountain of a library of books that has a lot on labor history and the history of strikes and unions, and as well as socialism and Marxism and many other isms like fascism. And Bob Datilio was a serious collector of books and historian of the early 20th century. And we now have his books here at the church, and we're just sorting them, trying to figure out what to do with them and how to make them be of most use, how to make them be a magnet for people to come here and enjoy them and learn from them. We were just with Steve Kellerman last Friday. Steve donated his enormous library of labor books to UMass Boston, the Department of Labor Studies, and there was an event celebrating Steve and bringing together a bunch of wobblies, and hopefully they will be here next Sunday, because Steve says, I won't do Zoom. I need to be there physically, and please get people to come in person. So I'm inviting you to come in person. We are going to broadcast it, but Steve wants us to be here in person and enjoy the meeting and have, as usual, lunch afterwards together. So here we are. We've also just whipped this auditorium back into sort of shape. It was filled with books, and last Friday we had an event that was filmmaker Jen Marlowe, who does a lot of documentaries around racism and Black Lives Matter, and also documentaries around Gaza and the West Bank, and she showed us some of her work, and we enjoy that. You can see it on our YouTube channel if you'd like to. Jen Marlowe is her name, and she's a remarkable filmmaker and activist. But to be ready for that physical event, we spent the whole day on Friday cleaning up Dean's man cave, which is what had become in 2 years of COVID. So we're really glad that it's sort of in presentable form again, and we're looking forward to receiving people again here at the church auditorium in Copley Square. I want to tell you give you another announcement. Kind of late news, an event a week from this Friday. His name is Dylan Buston, and he's also a close friend to several of us who are on this in this meeting. He's maybe one of the most remarkable storyteller, songwriter, playwright friends of ours that I can imagine. He's unsung, unheralded, remarkable writer of many songs recorded by a lot of people, including yours truly. Dylan will be here on Friday, May 6th. And it's a performance, a rare performance that we're looking forward to a lot. And we put it together at sort of last minute. But it's the end of our Winter Friday series that happened all during December, January, February, March, and this is the little icing on top of the cake. So join us for Dylan Buston on Friday, December 6th. I'm sorry, May 6th. I'm 6 months off, sorry. There's lots of other events to announce, but I want to go straight to our reading. Eduardo Galeano is from Uruguay. And he's perhaps my favorite author, and he writes a lot in these vignettes. And I'm going to choose April 24th's vignette. And the title is Don't Save Me Please. This is kind of like he writes history in 2 or 3 paragraph doses, which are perfect for reading on a Sunday morning. Don't save me, please. During this week in 1951, Mohammad Mossadegh was elected Prime Minister of Iran in a landslide. Mossadegh had promised to take back Iran's oil, which had been given away to the British. But nationalizing oil could lead to the sort of chaos that helps the communists. So President Eisenhower gave the order to attack, and the United States saved Iran. The coup d'etat of 1953 put Mossadegh in prison, sent many of his followers to their graves, and gave 40% of the oil Mossadegh had nationalized to US companies. The following year, far from Iran, President Eisenhower gave another order to attack, and the United States saved Guatemala. A coup d'etat toppled the democratically elected government of Jacobo Arbenz because he had expropriated the uncultivated lands of the United Fruit Company. Expropriating land could lead to the sort of chaos that helps the communists. Guatemala is still paying for that act of kindness, and so is Iran. On the subject of fossil fuels, I'm working hard on putting together an event with two Ukrainian presenters. The first one is named Svitlana Romanko. She is a lawyer and an environmental activist, and her slogan is "Stand with Ukraine, end fossil fuel use now." And she's a remarkable speaker, and she just published a editorial in the Los Angeles Times with Bill McKibben about exactly that. The other presenter is named Olina Glotova, and she's a remarkable Ukrainian jazz singer. She sings in English. What I've heard her sing is in English, and it's American standards with incredible piano playing and instrumentation. And I invited both of these, and they're both really interested, but a little bit, this is not quite the moment. Olina responded after about 2 weeks saying, "I can't do it right now. I've left all of my instruments behind in Kyiv. I brought my parents to another country in Europe," and she didn't specify what country it was. "But please, let's be in touch and let's do this." So I'm hoping that this will be the two of them, and it'll probably be during the day, maybe on a Sunday during the summer, because if you did it in the evening, it would be like 3 a.m. there, and that wouldn't work so well. Although, truth be told, we've done that before. Mazen Kumsia from Bethlehem, Palestine, joined us at 3 a.m. Bethlehem time, and it was a 7 p.m. event here. So that's what's going on at Community Church. Invite you to come in here and get the guided tour. A point of serious pride is that we have taken on a challenge, which is to turn this 5-story building in Copley Square into a state-of-the-art example of energy efficiency for the city of Boston's similar buildings, which there are about 30,000 of them. And to that purpose, and I'm just so proud about this, it fits right in with this morning's topic. We've already installed heat pumps, four heat pumps for 3 of the floors that we have in our control. And this summer, we're getting a 5th heat pump for our 5th floor. And we have decommissioned our oil-fired steam boiler. And that is good news. And we go on to the next low-hanging fruit, which is the exterior of the building. The roof, we've applied and received a sizable grant from the city of Boston to replace the roof this fall. And then we've been encouraged to apply again for work on our front facade and our rear facade that have windows that are original to the 1909 construction, very thick single pane windows. And we will either restore them and add a thermal pane inside, an interior storm window, or we will replace them. And that hasn't been determined yet, which the Architectural Commission of the Back Bay will allow us to do. So that's the exciting news about the building, and we invite you to come down here, especially during office hours. Crystal and I, Crystal Rollins Jackson, our publications and office manager, are here generally Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and glad to give you a tour of Bob Datilio's books, of Bob Datilio's research on the Sacco and Vanzetti case, which is right now takes up an entire office space on the 3rd floor, and of Community Church's archives and Community Church's efforts to become the most energy efficient building in the city of Boston. High sounding stuff, but that's what we're working towards. Eric, so glad to have you. I think this is the first time Eric has played on a Sunday morning at Community Church. And he didn't even have to come in. A couple of songs from Eric. We're going to hear them. Yeah.
Thank you, Dean. So my son, Sam, is a ranger for the city of Boulder, Colorado. And twice now in his time at that job, he has had to deal with the interface of suburbia and the wild in a particularly interesting way, in that he has had to shoot tranquilizing darts into 2 different mountain lions that were living under 2 different porches in Boulder. And it made me think a little bit about just how our modern world deals with apex predators. So this is a song about apex predators. And I'm going to take my headphones off because it's easier to hear. This is a song called Makin' a Living. I'm a mountain lion, I've been living here for the better part of 10 million years. Caribou and elk are my favorite entrees, but I make exceptions most every day. Well, I was up in a tree, high over a trail. I was looking for a deer, a raccoon or quail, when along came this jogger heading my way. He was kinda skinny, but it tasted okay. Making a living is no easy game. I take what I get and I never complain. Sometimes it's a famine, sometimes it's a feast. I'm just doing my best, doing my beast. Well, I'm a great white shark, and I sure like your beach, with its fat, tasty seals within easy reach. I'm not all that bright, my eyes are half blind, but until Steven Spielberg, no one paid me no mind. Well, the warnings were posted for all to see, but the surfers ignored them, and seals they can't read. A surfer in a wetsuit looks a lot like a meal, so I took a few bites, but it wasn't a seal. Making a living is no easy game. I take what I get and I never complain. Sometimes it's a famine, sometimes it's a feast. I'm just doing my best, doing my beast. It's the blues of the apex predator. I'm despised and misunderstood. My ego's not big, I'm just doing my gig. So if I eat you, it's for your own good. I ain't big, I ain't bad, but I'm the wolf that you hate. It's not my disposition, it's something I ate. I never touched that Red Riding Hood. She never passed my lips, but those sheep were so easy I couldn't resist. Have you seen what the deer do to rivers and trees? They can ruin a forest if it wasn't for me. But I get no respect from all that I've seen with your steel traps and poisons and AR-15s. Making a living is no easy game. I take what I get and I never complain. Sometimes it's a famine, sometimes it's a feast. I'm just doing my best, doing my beast. Thank you very much. So I'd like to play a song that I wrote a couple of years ago for a guy named Peter Norman, who is probably most of you have seen that famous picture from the 1968 Olympics where Tommy Smith and John Carlos were at the podium at the Olympics, having just finished first and third in the 200-meter dash, and they shocked the world by raising their fist in a Black Power salute, and sort of really more of a trying to focus world consciousness on racial issues. And for me, as a sixth grader at the time, it was my first real exposure to the interface of sports and politics, and I was pretty moved by that. And what I didn't find out till many years later was that the guy who came in second that day was an Australian named Peter Norman, who supported Smith and Carlos both publicly and privately during and after the events, and he paid us a real price for it. And this is kind of his story. It's called The Choice. Basically, they came to him. Smith and Carlos came to Norman right after they had finished the race and told him what they were going to do, and did he want to support them? And he said, yeah. And he wore a human rights campaign badge on his suit, which was controversial, especially given the apartheid state of Australia at the time. So this is Peter Norman's story, The Choice. I greet each customer with a smile and say, what can I get for you this fine day? I got some nice flank steak cut an hour ago, and some sausage to make your man's hair grow. Sometimes they ask about my twisted fate, about the Olympics in '68. Their butcher was the second fastest man on earth, and the aftermath and what it was worth. What you gonna say, what you gonna do, when the choice of a lifetime is handed to you? When the road forks between the easy and the true, what you gonna say, what you gonna do? I ran the race of my life, that's all I can say, but no one was beating Tommy Smith that day. I beat John Carlos by just the width of my hand for a silver medal on the honoring stand. Smith and Carlos told their plan to me about making a statement the whole world would see. They asked if I believed in God and brotherhood. I said I would help in any way I could. What you gonna say, what you gonna do, when the choice of a lifetime is handed to you? When the road forks between the easy and the true, what you gonna say, what you gonna do? Or a human rights badge pinned to my chest, as Smith and Carlos raised their fists, and the world was shocked to have to open their eyes to see these proud black men and a skinny white guy. Back in Australia, apartheid was the way. There was no confetti, no welcoming parade. They froze me off the team in '72, and I had to admit that I was through. What you gonna say, what you gonna do, when the choice of a lifetime is handed to you? When the road forks between the easy and the true, what you gonna say, what you gonna do? We're not hiring you, I heard from everyone. Couldn't coach, I couldn't teach, 'cause of what I'd done. Smith and Carlos had their hard times too. A butcher's an honest trade, it was something I could do. 38 years later, God opened the door and welcomed Peter Norman, only 64. Smith and Carlos bore the coffin down the aisle. My brother from another mother, Carlos said with a smile. What you gonna say, what you gonna do, when the choice of a lifetime is handed to you? When the road forks between the easy and the true, what you gonna say? What you gonna say, what you gonna do, when the choice of a lifetime is handed to you? Sometimes you only get a moment or two. What you gonna say, what you gonna do, what you gonna do? Thanks, y'all. Thank you, Dean.
Oh, thank you, Eric. I'm just like overcome with emotion after that song. Just the picture of them two as pallbearers carrying the casket. And then there's my favorite line of Eric Kilburn's from a song a long time ago. It goes, I love basketball. It does not love me. But sometimes you may find me in a teenage fantasy. I am Michael Jordan. I am Larry Bird. Ain't the swish of the basketball the sweetest sound you ever heard? And a little voice says, you're too old for this. And another little voice says, go ahead. Why bother to resist? Fiddle-de-dum, fiddle-de-dee. And I proceed to introduce these two lovely friends of mine. There's Laura Burns, who I know from, well, I really got to know Laura when we traveled in 1987 together to Nicaragua to do a tour with the group Flor de Caña, and she was the bass player, and it was a marvelous introduction, and we've stayed friends ever since. Used to live in Cambridge, has since moved to Hingham, where she is deep involved in town politics of Hingham, and I look forward to hearing from you, Laura. And Kate Crosby happens to be the significant other of that Eric Kilburn that you just heard, and they're most likely broadcasting from the same house, although Eric might be down at the studio, I don't know. But Kate, when I approached Kate, I said, how about something about climate healing? And she changed the wording a little bit away from healing, but I want to stress about Kate the healing part, which is that Kate went from being a nurse to healing the planet. And whatever you call it, whatever wonk kind of stuff you want to call it, I still think of you that way, Kate. So, folks, let's welcome Laura Burns and Kate Crosby for this morning's talk. Thank you. Who's going to start so I can spotlight you?
So we talked at length about it and concluded we didn't really know, so I'm going to start.
There you go. Whoops, wrong spotlight.
There you go.
I'm so smooth. There we go.
Well, thank you so much, Dean. And thank you, Eric. That was just so great to hear Eric play again and sing. Great to hear Dean play again and sing. And it is a privilege and an honor to be asked to talk to you today about local climate action, which is where it's at. So I just want to tell you a little bit about my career. I am a full-time climate activist for free. And it began in 2013 after I've lived in Hingham now for about 35 years. And I was finishing up my second term on the Board of Selectmen, what we now refer to as the Select Board in Hingham. And that was the greatest honor of my life. But after that, I was ready to do something different. And I wanted to seek some way of being of service to other people, but I was kind of hoping I would be able to find something where I could be of service to people who needed it more than people who live in Hingham. I was honored to serve in that way, but the things that people in Hingham thought were an emergency sometimes baffled me. And I knew that there were a lot of people who had larger problems. So I cast around for something to do, and I talked to my friends. And I've always wanted to be Paul Farmer. I always wanted to go to Haiti and hand out healthcare to people and make people feel better. And I know that I am not that person. When I go to a foreign country, I usually get sick. And as opposed to, and Dean I'm sure can tell you that because he was there. And I realize it's just not the way I do things. And what could I do while being who I am and being here? And then one day I realized that if I worked on climate change, that I would be helping everyone on the planet, or even more, I would be helping more the people who need it the most. The people who could benefit from work that I did here to cut carbon emissions would often be people who don't have the resources to change their lifestyles in a way that will help, and are often the people who don't have the lifestyles that contribute the most. So it seemed perfect thing for me to do. And so I said, yeah, I'll do that. And what do I do now? So I looked around for an organization to join, and someone from the UU church that I belong to in Hingham had started a chapter of 350 Mass, which is a statewide organization. And I knew he was a great guy and knew what to do. So I joined that. And we did a number of things. But I spent some time kind of trying to figure out what my special contribution was. And I knew that one thing that was going to be very important in my town is that our town is one of 41 towns in Massachusetts that owns our own electric utility. And a lot of people, unless you live in a municipal light plant town or an MLP town, as we call ourselves, you may never have heard of it or thought about it, but 15% of the electricity in Massachusetts runs through a municipal light plant town that is democratically controlled by the owners, who are the citizens of the town that they live in. So that looked to me like a unique opportunity that we already have in Massachusetts, considerable amount of electricity that is democratically controlled by the people. Power to the people, literally. And I wanted to figure out how to make use of that. And I would go to these, concerts or conferences and events. People would talk about the electricity industry in Massachusetts and how we're going to get it to move to renewable energy. And here's what you have to do. If you are in an Eversource town or a National Grid or Unitil. And no one ever spoke about municipal light plants. No one seemed to know what they were, and whatever they prescribed for me to do was something I could not do, but I had greater opportunities in my town to make a contribution. So I decided I want to make that my special area of attention. Somewhere along the way, 350 had a state campaign to encourage towns to commit to having 100% renewable energy. And so Turner Bledsoe and I, who had founded the 350 chapter, decided, along with another friend, John Borger, that we would seek to have our town not just make a commitment, because those resolutions from town meeting, they're just, if they're pieces of paper, you're lucky. They may not even be that. And we decided what our town really needed to have was a climate action plan to make it real, make a real commitment. So we actually formed Hingham Net Zero, which is our local climate action group. And we're going on 3 years now working at Hingham Net Zero. And I discovered with 350, we did a lot of interesting things. We did a lot of outreach, but we had a hard time getting people to connect with the work that we were doing. And I wasn't sure why, but when we formed Hingham Net Zero and started addressing the residents of our town as the residents of our town and said, you know what, you can't fix the big picture. You're going to have to rely on everyone else to work with you to fix the big picture, but we can definitely address our town's responsibility in this area. This is your town. This is our town. We run it. We can make decisions that are going to make changes. And what we found was that this is something that people can get their heads around. They can't figure out what to do about the climate, but they can figure out that it's important for their town to do their responsibility, our town to meet what we need to meet in order to look our children in the eye for the future. And it turned out to be the best recruiting tool possible. And people began to just drop out of the sky in Hingham, people with talent, experience, skills, wanting to contribute to this effort, who have never done anything political before, and not even been involved in town political issues before. And so now we have a core of about 15 or 20 activists and a mailing list of 250 other Hingham residents who are willing to help us get our points across when we want. So we decided, the first task was, let's have a climate action plan in our town. Now, I had been working also on the state level, working on getting the state to have a climate action plan. Our state representative here is State Representative Joan Moschino, who is the author of the 2050 roadmap bill that was signed into law with the Senate bill. So the 2050 Next Generation Roadmap bill that was signed a little over a year ago, creating a method by which the whole Commonwealth will have a climate action plan. So that's great. And now there's something for the towns to work on fitting their work into. So we went to the town and worked hard to first convince the select board and then town meeting that we needed a climate action plan. It took a year longer than it should have, and I'm not happy about that. But a year ago, town meeting did create the committee to create a climate action plan for the town of Hingham. And that was our first victory. At the same time, we felt like it was very, very important what our municipal light plant was going to do. Because in the broadest possible strokes, in the very simplest way, what has to happen on Earth and in Hingham, Massachusetts, is people need to stop using fossil fuels. And if they're going to do that in their homes and businesses, they're going to have to turn to electricity to do the jobs that fossil fuel did. So given that we control our electric company, it seemed crucial to us to have people who were ready to plan for that future heading up the light plant. So our light plant, like many other light plants, is directed by an elected board of commissioners. So we set a goal to get somebody onto our light board. And so we just call it the light board. The technical title is commissioners, but we just call it the light board. And so last spring, I ran and was elected to the light board. Our light board has 3 members. Many of them have 5. But because we actually already had a seat on the light board, that gave us a majority on our light board already right from the get-go. And so the town of Hingham, the Hingham Net Zero was directed to the town of Hingham to do these things. And then while they are getting ready, right now they're getting ready to write their climate action plan, we asked ourselves as Hingham Net Zero, what could we do that wouldn't get in the way of the climate action plan? We didn't want to wait till they had a plan to work on it, because of course there are things that we know are going to have to be in that plan. And so we wanted to start work on that right away. So we asked the town to put in the budget a position for a sustainability director, which a lot of towns have in their town budget, and we didn't. But we knew once there was a plan, there would have to be somebody to execute that plan. And so we worked on that this year. And then we did succeed in getting that put in the budget that's coming to town meeting in a week. And then our other issue was that our town is working on building a number of new buildings. And we didn't want to wait for the climate action plan to tell the building committees, you know what, you should have built those buildings a different way. So we had to get busy working with the people who were planning those buildings to make sure that they were electric buildings that were built to the highest possible standards and used the least amount of fossil fuels. So that's been a little complicated because there were 3 building committees and we had to go to all of them. Some members started a year ago at town meeting by standing up at town meeting and say, is this new public safety facility going to be net zero carbon emissions? We need to pass our rule here at town meeting that it has to be. And that was something that people who had not really ever been involved in town politics before thought made sense. And on the surface, it does. But the reality is that in order to make something like that happen, you can't wait until town meeting to do it. You have to go to the committee meetings where they're designing the building and make sure they arrive at town meeting with the right design. And so that proposal was defeated. And I was glad it was, because you do not want to tie the hands of your committees to one thing or another. What you want to do is go to the committee meetings and make your case and convince them that that's the way to go. So we've been doing that for the last year with our new public safety facility, our new elementary school. And also here in Hingham, not only do we have a socialized utility, we also have a socialized country club. We own a country club and they're building a new pool facility. So we had to work with them on that as well, their new pool and maintenance facility. And all of that work is continuing and ongoing, and we're still going to be working on that until those buildings are built, because it's not actually easy, and you can't just do it by going to town meeting and say it shall be done. You have to go to those committees and offer them the choices that they can make that are going to do the job. You have to do the research, you have to dig in. So that's what we've been doing. So meanwhile, back on the light board, I've been on for about a year, and I've spent sometimes kind of like thrashing about trying to figure out what the right way to go is. I knew one of my goals was that our light plant should have a plan to electrify Hingham. And that means having one place on the light board, on the light plant's website, where people can come to understand, how do you get solar on your roof in Hingham? Or how do what are the rebates if I want to put heat pumps in my house and get rid of my gas furnace or my oil furnace? Any of those things that have to do with changing our lifestyles, I wanted there to be a one-stop shopping place where people could come and get that information. And so that was the first thing that I did. And I designed this program together, not by myself, because you can't do anything by yourself. There's a Hingham Net Zero support group. We just call it the Light Plant Group, that meets to figure out what we should be doing on the light plan. And then I go to the light board and try to make that happen. And having all those minds working with me makes a huge difference. So we brought the Electrify Hingham program to the board. They liked it, the board adopted it, and now it's going to happen. So now I'm working on the plan to get our power supply to be 100% carbon free, because of course, if you switch to electricity, but your electricity is still half powered or 3/4 powered by gas or oil, you've achieved something, but not enough. And so now I am working on that plan, and that is a little more difficult, because that involves understanding the energy markets in Massachusetts, which is nearly impossible. Even my general manager on my light plant says, it's so complicated, I don't know what to do. But being involved in local climate action means getting committed to understanding whatever it is that stands in our way, and going as far as you can and deep into it as you need to be able to make a case that you can turn the ship and move in another direction. There was somebody who wanted to be on our light board who I interviewed to find out what he was like. And he said, well, you're an anti-carbon person. And I said, yeah, I'll cop to that. And he said, I'm not. I'm not a climate denier, but I just think that these issues are way more complicated than the anti-carbon people understand. And I said, well, I won't cop to that, because I joined the board so that I would be faced with having to grapple with all the complicated issues that are going to arise. And I'm committed to that. And that's the only way to go. Fortunately, we did not end up with this gentleman on our light board. So that's what I've been active doing on the light board. And that's what Hingham Net Zero has been doing. And we're about to change our focus, because for the last 2 years, we have been facing the town and asking the town to do these things: get the climate action plan, get the sustainability director, pay attention to the buildings that you're building. Let's get our power supply fixed. And we feel like we have that. We didn't get a lot of resistance, honestly. It's not, people have been desperate for someone to provide leadership in this area. And the select board was entirely behind us. The town meeting was entirely behind us. Somebody just had to do it. And so now we feel like we've got those pieces in place. We're going to turn 180 degrees, and now we face the community and go out and do the education and the outreach to the community groups and the churches to let them know what they need to do to fit in with Hingham's climate action plan, and give them the tools and the direction that they need to do their part. So we're engaged in kind of a little change of focus now. So I have found local action to be the right answer for me, just because I find that people will respond to that. They can understand it. They'll help. They'll get involved. When you say, we're in favor of all the big things, but we have a piece of it that we have to do that nobody's going to do but us. So we have to do that. And I have been operating during my whole time as a climate activist, really not so much on hope. I don't relate to hope. I feel like what's coming is already so terrible that it's I can't hope for it to be different, because it's not going to be. But I do try to operate from a place of compassion. That's the feeling that I reach for when I'm low and not feeling like I can work on this anymore, or I just want to take a vacation or whatever. The feeling I reach for is compassion for the people who are going to suffer, and knowing that whatever I do, however small it is, someone is going to suffer that much less if I can devote myself to getting that done. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think I've said enough, and I'm just going to turn it over to Kate to tell us some really concrete stuff that she's been doing that I'm really excited about.
Very good. Wonderful to hear all that, Laura. Laura and I had a chance to talk yesterday. We've never met, we think, but it's really great to connect, because we're working on different sides of the same puzzle. And I'm sure some of you are too. My name is Kate Crosby. My partner is Eric Kilburn, who just shared some of his music with us. And I think about Eversource territory and National Grid territory. So the other side of the picture in the state. Most of the cities and towns of Massachusetts are served by National Grid, Eversource, the big utilities. So it's a different logic, if you will. And I've worked for the last 11 years as the energy manager for the regional school district, Acton Boxborough Regional School District, where Eric and I live. And we've been able to get a lot done. So I'm really happy to share that story, because there's a lot of hope in it, a great deal more to do. But so I actually put together some slides, and I'm going to share them with you. So let me find out. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, Dean, can you allow me to share the screen? If you will. And you're on mute, so I think you're trying to say something to me, but.
I'm making you co-host.
Okay, thank you.
As soon as I can figure out where you are. There.
Find that
Sorry.
magic button.
Sorry, everybody. Kate, you are now co-host.
All right, super dupe. So I'm going to share my, probably you guys are looking at my screen, and I'm going to start on my slides. Can you all see those? Very good. So I'm gonna move quite quickly through a lot of information, and I think there's a question and answer moment in our time together this morning. So happy to answer questions. So forgive me if any of it's confusing. So these are our kids from Gates Elementary School, and we are putting up a new school building, and they're visiting the site of where they're going to be attending school starting in August. So that's really exciting for them and all of us. This is a wonderful quote from Bill McKibben, and important to share because people for some folks, they don't understand that the rate of our ability to address climate change is really key. Winning slowly, as Bill McKibben writes, is the same as losing. So the pace of how quickly we respond is tremendously important. And David Roberts, if you hear nothing else from me, I would encourage you to follow David Roberts. He's a remarkable journalist, the preeminent journalist on energy in the country, I would say. And clean electrification, as you heard Laura say, is what it's all about. So the rest, there's a lot of people yapping about what we need to be doing, but clean electrification is at the very center and the most important thing we need to do. We're going to conserve and make everything as efficient as possible. We're going to electrify everything, and we're going to clean up our electricity supply. Those are the three key steps that we need to move through as rapidly as possible. And you heard Laura speak to that. And it's so wonderful that Community Church is working on your building. It's exactly the right thing to be doing. I'm really thrilled that you guys have found some grant money and been able to make some steps moving forward. This is what we've done at the district. This slide is now, there are 3 years that aren't on this slide yet, but the big tall blue column on the left is the amount of we're using kilowatts when I start position, and that was all fossil fuel supplied. And we now that tall blue column on the left is now, if you look to the far right, fiscal 19, it's now tiny. And in fact, we're now down to zero carbon electricity in the district because we have all those green squares that grow in size. Let's see, up here is electricity that we no longer use because of efficiency and conservation. This is solar generated on site. In the orange, the light blue is electricity that is renewable per our contract. We specify renewable sources in our contract. And this is carbon or fossil fuel based electricity in our contract, but that's as of fiscal 22, we're 100% renewable. So we've gone in a decade from 10 or 11 years, right? So there's a little subtlety in there because I now, as we learn more, I now know that the way that we buy renewable electricity is not as impactful as what we could do. So we keep learning as we move forward, but we've made a big shift. This is the new building, Douglas Gates building, also known as the Boardwalk Campus, and it is a zero net energy school building. It's going to house 2 different elementary schools inside of it, 1,000 students. It is heated and cooled with geothermal, renewable electricity, renewable energy. It is all electric, except for the backup generator's diesel. The kitchen is all electric, using induction cooktops. The first time that our kitchen staff will be working with induction. If you are attached to your gas stovetop, you ought to explore induction because it's the solution for how you can electrify your house and still have a marvelous way to cook. Induction is very precise and very fast and very common in Europe and making its way here. And it's people cling to their gas stoves, but no, you don't need to. You can just find out about induction. Chefs adore it, and you will do. We are also putting a lot of solar up here and a battery array. And the building is collecting rainwater on its rooftop and using that inside the building. A little more about that in these following slides. So the picture on the left is just a graphic. It's not the building itself, but this is exactly what the geothermal well field looks like. These big plastic loops that go down 600 feet and come back up. The picture on the right is the actual building under construction. This is one wing, this is the other wing. And these 2 blue circles are the 2 well fields, the 2 geothermal well fields. where the 65 wells are located. Going down into that earth that's 55 degrees and bringing up water that's pretty close to what you want in the building and only needs a little bit of a goose to get it to what the building actually is seeking at that moment. This is a diagram, a drawing of the building. This is the building itself with a lot of solar on top. This is the parking lot covered by an extensive solar canopy array, total of almost 1,500 solar panels. And the battery array is down here, which is really serving as a revenue generator for us, because it's both snipping off our highest peaks and also selling services to the grid. So it is good for the grid, it's good for carbon, and for us, it's a moneymaker. So it's a happy story. This is a slide showing the energy use intensity for the building. It's a zero net energy building, as I say, so you can't probably read it, but the score for a conventional building is something like 40 as an energy use intensity score, which is kBTUs per square foot. The way to sort of a yardstick for energy use that you can compare buildings to each other. This new building is going to have a EUI, projected to have an EUI of 23.6, so a big savings. Lighting, heating, cooling are all use much less energy than in a conventional building. Occupant engagement is really essential, and what people choose to plug in is really important because you can tip the building into using too much energy if you plug in more stuff than we think we're going to. So I'll be working with teachers very closely in the year ahead. Also important to note that the building is a very healthy building. It has a lot of good ventilation and operable windows. The materials inside the building have been chosen to not off-gas any toxic stuff, and there's a lot of daylight coming into the building. And it turns out that in buildings like this, students learn better, all the occupants are more alert, there's less absenteeism, people actually show up for work at a slightly higher rate. It's really exciting stuff. We're looking forward to learning about the building together. Rainwater is captured on the roof and goes into this 20,000 gallon tank underground, and then is ported into what's called a day tank inside the building and is used for flushing toilets. The other taps in the building all have drinking water, potable water, but rainwater is being stored and used for flushing toilets. So that's fun too. And the building will be set up. We'll be looking to maximize student engagement with the building and have them learn from being in there, including dashboards they can look at. Some of the pipes will be exposed so they can understand how the building actually operates and take that with them into the future. We also have a second, so now I'm leaving that building and moving over to our central campus on the other side of town, and we have a battery array already operating on that campus, which was funded with partly with a state grant and partly through some capital investment by a private company. That battery also is generating revenue for us. It's supposed to generate $350,000 a year, and we get 23% of that. So we're supposed to be getting $80,000 a year. They're still having some problems with it, but hopefully when they get those tweaked, we will be getting checks like that, which is a lot of money for a school district. And the way it makes money is by when the grid is peaking, the utilities ask us to drop how much energy we're using. And with the battery, we can drop it very rapidly like this. So the battery starts feeding the campus, and instead of us buying electricity from the street. So we are paid handsomely for doing that. And then in addition, the battery is monitoring our peaks and snipping them off, because those peaks are tremendously expensive for us. That's our demand charge, and it's big accounts. You can see that it's hidden inside residential accounts. You can't see it exactly, but it's in there. The more our electricity use is even and steady and not all peaky and high, the cheaper and better the grid will be able to operate. So it's an important goal. And I'm going to go by this, I think, and I'll come back to it if we have time. I want to also say that we're now looking at electrification of our existing buildings, which is critical for meeting some of the goals that Laura described. We were able to get a grant from the state to do an electrification roadmap report study, and we got a great response. There's a really good vendor working on that right now, looking at how to electrify 4 schools, town hall, the library, and the public safety facility. So that's wonderful. And in addition, we got a $15,000 state grant to look at in particular detail at 11 rooftop units on the high school that are 11 out of 40 or 45 units that are gas fired and aging out, and how to replace them. And I'm happy to say when I called the engineering firm about this, they were like, nah, you don't want to put gas back up there, which was really interesting to hear from people deeply experienced and kind of at the peak of their careers as engineers being like, yeah, nah, you don't want to put gas back up there. So we're just receiving that report from them. The slide also notes down here at the bottom, if you haven't heard, that last November, Ithaca City Council committed to a contract with a vendor to decarbonize every single building in Ithaca, New York, which is 6,000 buildings. So by 2030, it was a head-snapping moment around the world for Ithaca to make that kind of a pledge. It's really breaking very important ground, and we'll see how they do with that. So very proud of them for stepping up, and we'll all be learning a great deal from their experience. And also important to mention that that's finally school buses are we're starting to get serious about electrifying school buses. I think Boston is committed to 20 electric school buses I just saw. And the really exciting news is that there are companies figuring out how to do this without it costing a huge amount of money, because in fact, there are cost savings inside of electrifying school buses that districts can't get to because it's too complicated, but you can use the batteries in these school buses to help lower those peaks on the grid that I was just talking about. And you can make money doing that from these same batteries. And if you're clever, you can come up with a package for a school district that is very attractive in terms of price and doesn't require a vast amount of new budget capacity from the district. So this blue headline down here is about Montgomery County Public Schools, big county outside of Washington, D.C., and they signed a contract to electrify all 326 of their school buses in 4 years. And they're going to do it without spending any more money than they've been spending. So that's astonishing, another head snapper. So we've been very intrigued, and the feds are about to spend, over the next 5 years, are going to spend $5 billion, over the next 5 years, $5 billion on electric school buses. So my point, this is that next gen roadmap that Laura was talking about and that she worked on. We have a commitment as a state, quite an aggressive climate goal to get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, which is awesome. So this is also a tool you can use. So all of this is to say that these are the things that Laura's been talking about, and the things that I've been talking about are all things that you can be asking for, pushing for, working for in your communities. And these are all reachable, which is really wonderful, and has not always been true, but they are coming into view now, and achievable goals. And you can demand these of your city folks and your town folks, the leaders, or step into leadership positions yourself, as Laura has done. And that's it from me. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing.
All right. Thank you, Kate. And thank you, Laura. That's a beautiful presentation, and thanks to both of you. Shall we go on to listen to Eric one more song? But before that song, I've got a beautiful basket here with which I'm going to hypnotize you into giving me all your money. This is a basket from Uganda. I bought it at a holiday fair, and it's just a way to tell you that we rely on your generosity to keep these programs going, to keep this congregation alive and healthy, and to keep our building from falling down. So I've put in the chat our website, where you can go and do the credit card thing, where you can go and do the PayPal thing. I want to thank 3 or 4 people who have started an amazing thing, which is recurring donations over the years. It could be any amount you want, but it really helps. Every little bit helps, whatever you're able to. So thank you. And there's also the street address in case you want to use the old paper check method. And Eric, come on back and give us one more song. How about?
Sure, Dean.
And after that, we'll have a question and answer. You can put your questions in the chat, or you can put your hand up, or you can wave your hands frantically like this, and I'll eventually find you. Eric.
Thank you, Laura, for your really interesting talk, and thank you, Kate, for I don't think I learned anything new because I've been having dinner with you for 20 years, but or more, but it was really fun to hear it
Eric.
all there.
Eric, it's a little hard to hear you.
Oh, really? Huh.
Any chance you could raise the volume a tiny bit, Eric?
Gosh, I don't know, maybe. Is that any better? Hello. Is
Yeah,
that,
as
I
close
didn't
as you
use
can
the
be
other
to
hand.
the microphone also would be great.
Original sound is on. Is that any better? Am I gone?
Call it good. Just eat that mic as close as you can.
Huh. Are we frozen?
No.
I can't hear you guys at all. Oh dear. Let
You're
me
good.
just see what happened here.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Oh, hang on. There we go. That's better. Is that any better?
Oh yeah, big time.
That's better. Something just really changed. That's
Okay, I think maybe that's better. Hello.
Now that's a little too much.
Is that, I lost you completely, Dean. I don't know what happened. Maybe my Zoom preferences. Oh dear. All right, let me check this out here.
Yeah.
Audio. Output level. Microphone. Okay.
That'll be good.
Is that must be better now, right?
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's big. Yeah.
Is that better now? Yeah. Okay, great. I can't hear you guys, but somehow or other that don't know what that is. But I'm going to sing you a song here by my friend Bill Staines, wonderful songwriter who I got to know. I opened for him at Passim and produced three or four concerts of his over the years, starting in the early '80s and ending one. He did one for my neighborhood in 2020. So this is probably his best known song. It has a singable chorus that goes like this. River, take me along in your sunshine, sing me a song, ever moving and winding and free. You roll an old river, you change an old river, let's you and me, river, run down to the sea. So that's your part. Sing along if you can. I was born in the path of a winter wind, raised where the mountains are old. Then springtime waters came dancing down, and I remember the tales they told. The whistling ways of my younger days too quickly have faded on by, but all of their memories linger on, like the light in a fading sky. Here's the chorus. River, take me along in your sunshine, sing me a song, ever moving and winding and free. You roll an old river, you change an old river, let's you and me, river, run down to the sea. Well, I've been to the city, I've been back again. Been moved by some things that I've learned. Met a lot of good people and I called them friends. Felt the change as the seasons turn. Heard all the songs that the children sing, and I've listened to love's melodies. I felt my own music within me rise, like the wind in the autumn trees. River, take me along in your sunshine. Sing me a song, ever moving and winding and free. You roll an old river, you change an old river. Let's you and me, river, run down to the sea. Someday when the flowers are blooming still, someday when the grass is still green, my rolling waters will round the bend and flow into the open sea. So here's to the rainbow that's followed me here, and here's to some friends that I've known, and here's to the song that's within me now. I will sing it where'er I go. River, take me along in your sunshine. Sing me a song, ever moving and winding and free. You roll an old river, you change an old river. Let you and me, river, run down to the sea. River, take me along in your sunshine. Sing me a song, ever moving and winding and free. You roll an old river, you change an old river. Let you and me, river, run down to the sea. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Eric. That's wonderful. Bill Staines presente is what I say. He passed away about, what was it, like 4 or 5 months ago. Amazing road warrior like none other. So we have some time for some questions and answers. I want to ask both of you, Laura and Kate, about gas, and there's this really interesting and controversial thing that happened in Brookline where they prohibited new gas hookups, and there was quite a stir from especially from restaurants who think that gas is the way to go, and I wonder if that is something that's been considered in either Acton or Hingham. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that I was planning on and hoping to, and then it got too busy and never got time to invite a third woman of energy and climate power whose name is Audrey Shulman from the group HEAT, H-E-E-T, who have been very helpful to us here at the church. They did a barn raising where they brought a bunch of volunteers here, and we installed a bunch of weatherproofing and weather stripping and cellulose insulation. And Audrey Shulman is working a lot on the issue of gas and gas hookups, and she wrote recently about something I'm really interested in. I wonder if either of you know about, which is, I think it's called pilot grids. And it's the gas company that's really good at digging up streets, taking a street, maybe 20 houses, and making a geothermal setup for 20 houses.
It's called a geo. They call it GeoGrid.
GeoGrid.
Audrey and Zainab. Laurie, do you know? You must know their work, yes?
I do, yeah. I'm familiar with both those things you mentioned, Dean.
Yep, it's wonderful. Well, I mean, Audrey's a true genius. She's just unbelievable. And so is Zainab. So they dreamed up something that the utilities had never considered, and that they are now undertaking to pilots of, and which is to use the gas right away to deliver low temp hot water from a geothermal, a linked geothermal system that would serve a neighborhood.
So
And,
it's using the same lines, the same
no,
pipes?
but it's using the right of way. So because they own the ability to deliver to houses, right? They have the rights to that territory and that network, and they can repipe those areas for delivering low temp hot water and become a heat utility instead of a gas utility. And it turns out it works. They're quite excited because they will be able to do a lot of capital and building, a lot of require a lot of infrastructure, and for them that's capital expenses, and that's a way to make money. So it works for them that way. And in addition, they will provide both heating and cooling. So they'll have billable services in the summer as well as in the winter. So for them, and they won't die, right? So it rescues them from oblivion as well. So it's quite interesting to them. And so they are both Eversource and National Grid are moving forward with pilots and excited about it. And Audrey and Zainab dreamed it up out of their own research and creativity.
That's just who would have thunk it? Just switch to a
somebody thunk
different medium with the same pipes, or with the same rights of way that the pipes have.
They're very good at consensus, and they have over the last decade done a lot of work with the utilities on gas leaks, and they've never vilified them, and done a lot of consensus building, and we're always worked with respect. And so as a result, they've had this entree with utility leadership, and just have never thrown them under the bus. And so they've been able to make things happen that are quite extraordinary as a result of how they've conducted themselves.
And that is a really good lesson about local climate action, which is you have to work with the people who are already working in your space. And there's no way to do that except with respect. And there is a place for confrontation. And just like a year ago, I got arrested over at the Weymouth compressor station that was going in. So, I mean, I'm for that. But when it comes to building answers, the respect has got to be there from the get-go, or you're just not going to get anywhere. Dean, on your about the gas hookup ban that you mentioned, we have not broached that yet in Hingham. We were kind of hoping after Brookline did that, there was a legal question about whether or not Brookline was allowed to do that under state law. And so one way of solving that was that they submitted special legislation along with, I think, 6 or 8 other towns asking for permission to be able to make those bans in their towns. And there was also legislation filed to make it universal, that any town could do that. I understand they're putting together another omnibus climate bill right now up on Beacon Hill. And I think that the special legislation for the 6 or 8 towns who asked is included, but the general permission is not. And so I'm disappointed about that. But I think that's coming for sure.
I see.
Well,
Rudiger, you have your hand up, I see.
Rudiger, go ahead. I see Kevin's got his hand up, and Rudiger,
You're muted.
you're muted. Would you like?
Yes.
the
Hi.
floor? Rudiger, there you are.
Yes. Thank you so much for the talk. And nowadays I characterize or criticize talk, how talks are presented, and you did a fabulous job compared to politicians who has to read every second word, and you spoke probably 30 minutes free, and so that's marvelous, and I enjoyed it very much. Yes, so I have 2 questions. One is a philosophical, personal one. You might answer or not answer. And one is a pragmatic one, that's the opposite. One question, the personal question is, environmental topics lean to be knockout topics. That means, as like life, you can say to any actions, well, we will die one day, so who cares? No? And with environmental things, we can say, and I personally say this, whatever I do, whenever I shop something, whenever I go somewhere, I use energy, as my mother said, and nowadays we would say I use plastic, or I make an alteration, negative alteration to environment. So better not to do something. No? My question is, how do you cope in a personal life for yourself or with your partner not to be ballistic? Ballistic. The pragmatic question is simple. I live in Northborough and try to come up very simple with an ordinance to put of all parking lots and particular of private companies solar cells as maybe what I envision a matching fund entity where the town and the company pitch in and make over parking lots solar cells, which provides also shadow for the for the workers who park their cars there, and this is also then healthy. What would be the best approach not to bring out the question and to appall basically the public, and then the idea is already dead before it's implemented or had a chance to be implemented? So those are my two questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I understood your first question exactly. Could you just restate that one more time?
Yeah, the first question is with life or environment. I think both topics. There is this is such an ultimate question of why should we be, for example, with life, why should we be active when we die anyway? No, so no, one day we will dead, and so it's finished. With environment, whatever we do when we go out of the house and go a public bus, even which is gas driven and so on, or batteries, so electric vehicles are not so environmental fine also. No? So basically, it comes down what Mrs. Kate showed this on the slide, which many people forget, is saving brings the best environmental issues, or having no children, or so children is the worst polluter basically. So we end up basically, when we think about really concerned about environment, not to do anything, a Buddhist meditation all day long.
Okay, so I identify very strongly with the Buddhist point of view, so I'm not sure I would characterize it that way. So my answer for your first question of, we're all going to die anyway, it's like, well, likely we're going to be here for a while before we die, and so is everybody else on the planet, and they can suffer either more or less depending on the actions that we take in our everyday life, and I choose less. So that is why I choose to act, is on behalf of all of the other people who share this place with me. And then the second piece was, say it again.
Parking lots. The parking lots.
There was a second piece to the personal question, which was, well, what do I do personally? So I think that everybody has to make the best accommodations that they can in their life, and as you go forward, you find you're able to do more and more things that will be lighter and lighter on the environment. But people can be very, very a little bit over the top on the personal choices that they make. I'm Rep. Joan Mosquito, who wrote the roadmap bill. I'm her campaign manager, and I got an argument with someone who was a very strong supporter of hers in the beginning, and decided he wasn't going to support her anymore because she refused to compost. Now, Joan has she has a lawn that's about the size of a park, postage stamp. And she's really busy up on Beacon Hill, making very large change for our Commonwealth. That's what she does. That's what she can do. Everybody can't do everything. You just do what you can and respect other people's choices, because in the long run, it's personal choices are not going to get us there. It's what we do to change the institutions that we live in that is really going to affect the change. And so moral issues around what people do is not, making those moral issues is not helpful to anyone.
And it is also true, as Laura was saying as well, that making these choices around electrification is the way forward for all of us. So you can, we now drive, I mean, speaking personally, again, it's these system dynamics that we need to be looking at, and joining organizations that are thinking, that are networking and thinking about state goals and town goals, and not what we're doing in our own household. You don't want to obsess about your own household, but I now drive an electric vehicle. We just electrified our house. And we had put in an induction stove 4 years ago. We just finished taking out our gas heating system, which was aging out and needed to be replaced, and put in heat pumps like the community church. And so everything we are now 100% electric, and the electricity we buy is 100% renewable. So we're now living a zero carbon life, which is astonishing. It's only 2022, and I'm already living that. So it's all possible now.
So I've done many of those things, and I'm working on others, but in the long run, if you can't make it possible for everyone to make those choices, we're not going to get there. And so it's in whatever you can do in your life is important, but even more important is working on the structures in our society that will allow people who don't have the resources to make these changes to be able to contribute by making those changes. And we'll never get there without that.
Yeah, so we do all use energy, Rudiger, but it's if it can all be electric, and that electric is all renewable, we that's the solution. That's the way we are moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And on the parking lots, I had one suggestion for you. How do you put that idea out there without just having everybody say, forget it? You should look into there's a state program called the PACE program. What is the acronym mean? I can't, PACE. I can maybe look it up and put it in the chat before you go.
Oh, yes.
And it's a program that your town opts into, and it's really easy to get your select board to do it because it doesn't cost the town anything. And once the town opts into it, businesses in your town are eligible for 0 interest loans for energy retrofits of all kinds. So this is a tool to use in the business community to do this kind of thing. And once you get your town signed into that thing, then you can approach the business owners who own all those parking lots and tell them about this program, and that might help.
Thank you.
Charlie, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hi. I haven't really looked into it, but do you know much about the community choice electricity program in Massachusetts?
Yes.
Take that one.
I do know a lot about it, Charlie, and many municipalities started signing up to do a community choice program as a way to save costs, but they have also now pushed towards having it be a way to add a great deal more renewable electricity to the supply. Are you engaged in a community choice aggregate? I think Boston has a community choice aggregation, right?
Yes, and we have signed up. Community Church has.
So what's your question, Charlie?
Well, I just wanted to, if you could expound a little bit more about it and the implications of it.
You wanted to?
Or no, can you?
Oh, it's great. It's a powerful tool, and it's a way so that you take your residents of whatever municipality or city and you bundle them together, and the town leadership or city leadership writes a contract for the supplies for the electricity for those ratepayers. So, and you can do that at a rate that is more favorable than what you would get if you were just buying from the utility. And you can also mix and match and add in a great deal more renewable supply. Right now is a hard time. Action is actually about, in September, we'll start a new contract, and electricity prices are way up across the country. And the price of renewable electricity is bumping at the moment. So it's a hard moment right now to start a new contract, but in general, these programs have saved millions and millions of dollars for their ratepayers, and have also, where people have pushed for it, have also provided a good deal more renewable electricity than the state requirement. So Newton leads, I think, is at 82% renewable. The state requirement is 20%. Lowell is at 65% renewable. So these are people there's been some big commitments made through using this community choice aggregation contract. Does that help?
My question, Kate, is there enough?
Charlie?
Charlie.
Yes, I know I've been looking into or thinking about it, but I've just been slow to do it. And maybe
right. Many of them now are set up where you can choose to, there's a default, you can drop down to basic, or you can opt up to 100%. And I would encourage you, if you are able, to opt up to 100%. It's generally a relatively affordable and way to do it. And it's good to work in solidarity with other people in your town. And it's also very impactful. So where people live in a program that offers a higher level of renewable, I would encourage you to step up to that.
So interestingly, in the parts of over 50 towns in Massachusetts that are served by municipal light plants, we don't use that program because in our towns, we are monopolies. If you buy electricity in Hingham, you must buy it from the Hingham Municipal Light Plant. And so since deregulation in other towns, you can have competition for business, but not in municipal light plant towns, which protects us from having the large utilities come in, compete with us, and take our customers away. So we have to do it by looking at the municipal light plant's power supply and working on it there. So that's what I'm doing. And I put a link in the chat to the property assessed clean energy PACE loan program that the state offers.
But the goal is the same, whether it's the light plant towns or you have a community choice aggregation program inside Eversource or National Grid, which is to drive towards renewable supply. You want to push for that wherever you are.
I have a question, or just it's an idea. I wrote something in my Facebook wall the other day, and it was basically saying, when World War II happened, the United States converted its economy to a wartime economy in a matter of about 2 years, and produced enough military gear to help win that war. And the question is, why not have a War Powers Act that produces heat pumps and and converts factory space into nothing but doing that? And somebody responded, maybe that should be a national petition. So maybe that's my next step. Do you think that's a possible little piece of a solution?
Yeah, I think we're in the middle of a cultural battle at the moment, and Bill McKibben and others are busy talking about heat pumps for peace and doing exactly what you're describing, Dean. So the oil and gas people are going to say this is the moment we need to double down on oil and gas, and those of us who understand that electrification is the way forward are saying this is the moment to step up. There's a guy named Kingsmill Bond who worked for a carbon tracker project and now is working for Rocky Mountain Institute, who said the Ukraine war is going to hasten the transition away from oil and gas. But of course, it's a critical moment here, and yes, we all should be putting our shoulder onto. Thank you, Laura. We should all be putting our shoulder to the wheel on making sure that this goes in the direction of electrification and not in the direction of empowering oil and gas barons.
So the link I just put in the chat is a link to a very recent article in which Joe Biden has invoked the Defense Production Act to increase domestic battery manufacturing. So that's, remember when we wanted Trump to do that for the masks and whatnot. So he's using the powers that he's got. He should expand that, obviously.
One of the battles coming up is the oil and gas people are going to want to build a lot of liquid natural gas facilities on our coast and the same on the coast of Europe so that we can ship them our natural gas. And many of us climate activists have been working to prevent that sort of buildup of facilities, and there will be a big push to do that now to help rescue Europe from whatever. And it's a way for the gas people to get their product to another continent, and we should do whatever we can to make sure that the solution is electrification, not more gas being shipped across the ocean.
Heat pumps for peace. And
Yep.
energy conservation for peace. Low-hanging fruit for peace.
Yes, indeed.
Kevin, did I see your hand up as well, or were you just stretching it up in the air? Maybe not. So that's very good. Why don't we come to a conclusion of some sorts by saying that the solution is not necessarily live without food in the nude in a cave. That we can do this, but it takes everybody, and hundreds of different ideas and initiatives and ways of seeing things. I love Michael Pollan, who says, eat, not too much, mostly plants. And that covers vegetarians, it covers omnivores, it covers meatitarians. You're eating too much meat. That'll be a serious contribution to the solution if we could figure that one out. Anyone else have any observations to conclude? One new message. Thank you too for joining us. And the wonderful lyrics were a treat. That was from Y.H. Pat, who's down in South Carolina, I believe. And her question was also about that PACE program. Is it national or state? I believe it's only a state program. Am I right?
It's a Massachusetts program.
Just
But when I was looking for this online, I noticed that New Jersey has something exactly the same. So perhaps there are other states that have that.
Yeah, okay. Rudiger.
Sorry to come here for a second time, but I will give a speech. One of my ideas is or thoughts is totally globally, no, not locally. What do you think? So we are for democracy, and I heard this word many times, but I think I'm more and more convinced that globally dictatorship for environmental source must be placed, because whatever we do, there is an outlet. For me, that's my opinion, of course, as an outlet, because we are here a planet with 8 billion egoistic people, no? So we have to face it. And what do you think about this? To think globally that there must be somehow a dictatorship. So strange as it sounds, and maybe controversial as we would like, but I think there is no way around. Thank you.
I think that we are never going to solve these problems until the voices of the most oppressed and most left behind communities are heard much louder than they are now. We're never going to be able to bring all of us along unless we can bring all of us along. And dictatorship is not the way to hear truths. I don't know if you've been watching all of the articles about how Biden, Biden hears a lot of voices, but Putin only hears the voices that he wants to hear. And there's not much incentive to tell a dictator the truth about what's going on. And I just happened to see something about the Battle of Stalingrad on PBS last night. It turns out the same was true of Stalin and Hitler. That nobody would tell, because they're dictators, nobody would tell them the truth about what was going on. They would only tell them what they want to hear. So I don't think that's going to work. I'm sorry.
Kate or Eric, final word?
Thanks, everybody. I had a lot of fun listening to you. And thanks for letting me sing for you today, folks. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, and just lovely to be together in a circle.
Yeah. Kate, thank you so much. And Laura, same to you. And Eric. And we go out by saying, as I have come to know this world, from the moment of my birth until the day my life is done, I pledge allegiance to the earth. I pledge allegiance to the earth. From this world we have grown, planet, body, Gaia, home, learning to make peace with ourselves, realize we're not alone. As I have come to know this world, from the moment of my birth until the day my life is gone, I pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. We are all made of dust and will soon return someday. All of our weapons and our power, not so hard to wash away. As I have come to know this world, from the moment of my birth until the day my life is done, I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. As we live, so live all. Flags and countries rise and fall. In the rhythm of this planet, I can hear my own heart call. As I have come to know this world, from the moment of my birth until the day my life is done, I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you
Thank
all
you,
for being
Dean.
here. Shall we declare the meeting over? Shall we say amen, hallelujah,
Amen.
hallelujah,
Amen. Amen.
amen, hallelujah. Thank you all. And we'll see you the next time. I'm going to also copy and paste the chat into the YouTube, which will be available for anyone who wants to go back through all of these wonderful folks. Bye, Kate. Bye, Laura. Bye, Rudiger.
Bye,
Eric.
Dean.
Bye,
Kevin.
Dean.
Charlie,
Thanks,
thank you.
everyone.
Charlie, our tech guru. Barry Warner, thank you. And Lenny and Alan, thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Copy the chat. Yes, save the chat. We did it. And now we're all done. Have a great day, everybody.